All right, let's get this thing started. I apologize to everyone listening live because anyone that's listening to the podcast to this, you won't even realize that we were just a little bit late. But thank you for your patience and for helping us get the correct link. Hopefully everyone will retweet that link that I just posted off of my Twitter account. But again, welcome to tonight's Postgame Pint. My name is Seth Stowes of Twins Daily and twinsdaily.com. I get to be host for the second straight night, and after a tough loss on Tuesday night, the Twins came back with a big 12-2 win in Milwaukee to end that series. Nice way to go into their first off day in a couple of weeks. So let's start by introducing our panel. And again, I'm going to go simply by how you guys appear on my screen. We're going to go with Matt Braun. What's your post-game pint?
All right, what's up, Matt? I mentioned this before, but anyone else who hasn't seen me before, I'm from Washington. In Washington currently, state that is. So I still have light. You guys are all in the dark. It's fun stuff. But anyways, I have an Aslan right here. This is a local brew. It's actually made in my college town. And just wanted to kind of show it off, Washington microbrews and whatnot.
Well played. Well played. Let's go next to the Nodak Twins fan, Mr. Cody Christie. How are you this evening, and what's in your pint glass?
I'm pretty good, Seth and Matt and Ted. Good to be here again. I have a big glass of water because we have a big teaching meeting tomorrow morning. Our first one back in the building since I've been in the building, I think, twice since March. The different departments at the high school I work at. So, yeah, so I'm just going with water.
All right, I'm not sure if it's my internet connection that's going, but Ted, why don't you take over here for a minute and tell us what your post-game pint is?
What do you guys think? Why don't we start with you, Matt? What did you think about the game?
Right. So Seth's just coming in. We're going into this. You can take over as host then right after I answer this.
But good. Apparently it was my internet that was going bad, so I apologize, and thank you guys for kind of taking it over. I apologize to the listeners. Real quick, I do want Matt to start with his thought of the game, but I do want to remind all the panelists that the Q&A is available. We'll try to answer as many questions there as we get. And also the chat room can be open as well. And so leave questions and comments there. With that, Matt Braun, your thoughts.
We will have Seth's candid photo as the thumbnail as well.
Yes. I did take a picture right before you left, Seth, of your photo. It is wonderful. I will certainly be tweeting that. But anyways, my thoughts on the game. It was just great to see a game we didn't have to overthink, where I feel like after a few of the games in Kansas City, and then the game the other day, it felt like we kept questioning, like, this is the lineup, these are the managerial moves, all very minor things that at the end of the day ultimately don't mean maybe as much as we think they do. We just tend to overanalyze them because, they lost a one-run game. They lost a two-run game. And it's like, well, these things added up. You didn't have to do it here. It was a 10-run win, 12-2. Maeda was phenomenal. The offense was just, you put up 12 runs. That speaks for itself. So it was just great to sit back and just enjoy what we know the Twins can do and what are capable of.
Absolutely. I agree at 100%. There's been a lot of closer games, but I think the Twins, especially having lost 5 of 6, having a nice, easy win, so to speak. They're never completely easy, but a nice, easy win was good for the players, but it was also good for the fans. Cody, since you started us appropriately previously, let's go to your game thought next.
Yeah, I think, I was writing down a bunch of stuff as the game was going on, but I think one thing that stood out to me, and Matt, you kind of touched on it, is just so much of the bullpen had to get used in last night's game, that it was nice that for the most part the bullpen could have most of tonight off, and then they also get the off day tomorrow, which I think some of those guys, I think we saw, had some struggles in last night's game, especially with May giving up the home run and Rogers giving up some runs there late. So I think that was good. I mean, we had big performances offensively. Sano, the first thing the first note I wrote was that he went first to home on that double early in the game, hustling around, and they sent him in. So that was good to see him moving around. And then obviously the moonshot that he had that, might still, I guess it did land eventually just way up in the rafters of in Milwaukee there. And Buxton again with a big game. So I think it's good to see the guys that, were either injured in summer camp or late getting to summer camp might slowly be finding their swings at the plate.
We certainly hope so. And what I've done when I've done previous hosting of games is kind of talked about each of those individually. But I think there's just so much to talk through. We're going to go to those individuals as we go. But Ted, what was your key play or key thought of the game tonight for the Twins?
Mine was really a lot of little things that they did right. I mean, it was the first game this season. I was just looking back on their schedule. It was the first game this season that they'd scored in more than 3 consecutive innings. They'd scored 3 consecutive innings twice, but they scored 5 consecutive innings tonight and 5 out of 9 innings. They've really struggled to string runs together. Even in the games against the White Sox where they scored a bunch of runs, it was 1 or 2 innings that they really pounded out those runs. And so tonight it was nice to see them add on. Both Sano and Garber was nice to see them have good games. And I think I tweeted through a little bit of that today, that I think really what they're struggling with is they just haven't seen the pitches. They didn't get to have those live at-bats against other pitchers. And while I think that inter-squad games are really valuable for pitchers to get feedback from hitters, I'm not sure that they're as valuable for hitters to see pitches that they aren't used to seeing. And so the more that they get live at bats and get to see some of these other pitchers, Eric Lauer is nothing special, and tonight they made him look like nothing special, and that's what this lineup should do to mediocre pitchers, and it was nice to see them finally do that.
Well said. So before we get into our general topics and conversation throughout the topics of the game, getting into a lot more detail, I do want to again remind people the chat room's open. You can just click on that and continue the conversation. Tell us what you're drinking as your post-game pint, maybe what you were drinking the last couple of nights when things were going bad, and leave your general comments there. There's also the Q&A. And if anyone wants to join us, just do the raise hand thing, and we can bring you on vocally. We won't have your faces showing, but you can come on with the audio. We did that for the first time last night, which was a lot of fun. So feel free to do that if you're interested. So the comment we've got in the chat room right now is from Bobby Riley, and it says, Maeda is so fun to watch. And I know this is a lame comment. Good confidence, sir. But Buxton should not be at the bottom of the order right now. So I think that's a good place to start with the conversation, because as you guys have alluded to, he did miss so much time during summer camp, birth of a child, and then the foot injury. And it does take time, I think. The idea last year batting him ninth was to kind of take some of that pressure off and say, hey, you're a valuable player, even if you're batting ninth, and because of your defense, speed, all that kind of stuff. But he's been on fire for about a week. Really, I think since the double he hit in the game against Pittsburgh, had the 3 straight homers, and now tonight 2 more home runs and 3 hits. I guess Cody, or we'll go to Matt first here. I want your thoughts on just the topic of first what you're seeing from him that you think may look different. And I know it's a little technical, but the other comment is, where would you like to see him hitting in the lineup right now?
Yeah, so that's a pretty big question. There's a lot to kind of take in there. The the first thing kind of is whenever, because we've been talking about moving Buxton up for, I don't know, even since he was in the minors. We were just like, this guy is our future number one hitter. And since then, we've seen already a mini evolution of the leadoff hitter to move. Maybe we actually don't need a speed guy. Maybe this is should be an OBP guy, which, no offense to Buxton, he's not going to be. He's not an on-base guy. That's just who he is. So I don't know to move him up. And then also the second question is, all right, then who do you move down? Who do you move down in the lineup? There are guys now who you can look at their 2020 numbers and say, well, they're not hitting great. But we can know historically that they should be doing better. We even saw today that Garver did a lot better, that Arias can get a lot better. If those guys get back on track, if we get Donaldson back soon, a fully healthy Twins lineup, you're going to hit him ninth because there's no other way to hit him. Like, that's just simple as it is. As far as what I'm seeing from Buxton, I know it's kind of overstated, but it's just confidence, the confidence of getting at-bats, of seeing pitches and being able to just work with what the pitcher is giving. I love the dichotomy of the first 3 at-bats were all one pitch, and then his fourth at-bat was like his 9-pitch behemoth that he hit a home run off of. Just fantastic stuff. I love it all around, and I think he is really becoming more confident over these last few days.
I think that what you just brought up, I think, brings up the fact that there's so many different ways to win a baseball game. It can be swinging at the first pitch, or it can have, averaging 6 plate appearances. Depends on the at bat and everything involved. We're going to jump to Cody here. I guess your thoughts on Buxton. Again, his batting average has increased from 067 to, I believe he ends tonight at 298, in a week. And again, I think that speaks to the small sample. But I guess, you don't have to get too technical, but what are you seeing? And secondly, in the lineup, what is the ideal spot for him?
I think a lot of it was things Matt was mentioning. It's a lot of timing with him. You could just tell, some of his early at-bats this season were just not competitive. And I think they mentioned it on some of the broadcasts this year. It's almost like we're watching them do Sano and Buxton doing their spring training at bats right in front of our eyes that not a lot of people see in games that matter. And so there were obviously some struggles for both of them and for multiple bats on this team, even with the guys that got to go through a full summer camp. So I think as far as his spot in the lineup, I think I'm comfortable with leaving him where he is unless he continues to produce at this level and they feel like he warrants to be moved up in the lineup. I think he's comfortable in that spot because he's been there, parts of multiple seasons. And people might forget, the first half of last season, Buxton was really good. He was up near the top of the American League in doubles, and, some people might have put him in the teams. He might have been the Twins MVP in the first half, up there with Polanco and Kepler and some of those other guys that were having great starts to last season. So I think people get frustrated by the injuries a lot with Buxton and how much time. It's scary to think what a full season of Byron Buxton could look like. When his offense is clicking. We've seen the defense be otherworldly for multiple years. He's got the platinum glove to back that up in his one main season where he played the whole time. And so I think fans can get frustrated with the injuries, but when he's on the field, he's fun to watch. Hopefully over this shortened season here, he can be out there almost every day, and we can see the production like we've seen over the last week.
All right, Ted, your thoughts on Buxton and where you would bat him in the lineup?
Yeah, I think as much as sometimes you can get hung up on like Kepler leading off and him being a power hitter and a home run hitter and maybe wasting some home runs on solo shots, like Buxton is the opposite. I would almost love to bat him ninth every game because he isn't a power guy, and yeah, he's a speed guy, but he can hit 20, 25 home runs in a year where he's clicking. And I had to laugh. Twins Daily writer Nash Walker was tweeting earlier before the game today that Tim Laudner said, you know, he needs to put the ball on the ground more and beat it up. Buxton has 6 infield hits this year. He had 4 all of last year in like 87 or 82 games or something like that. Like, if your goal as a major league hitter is to, hey, I'm really fast and I'm going to make you hurry, like, they're major league fielders. They're going to throw you out. Like, you don't put the ball on the ground. Your goal is to hit line drives, and your goal is to hit the ball in the gap. And Byron Buxton can do that. And he's at his best when he is hitting doubles that turn into triples, or he gets a hold of one and turns it into a home run. That first at, I think it was his first at bat, he homered tonight. Like, that was a slider down and away. He had zero business pulling to left field, and he muscled that out of the park. Like, a guy in any lineup that can hit ninth and do that is crazy. And then you put him behind guys like Max Kepler, Jorge Polanco, Nelson Cruz, Josh Donaldson when he's healthy, Miguel Sano. Like, that's not fair. You shouldn't have a guy like that hitting ninth. So to me, like, a Luis Rise or somebody that hits for a high on base percentage and probably isn't going to drive the ball out of the park, go ahead, move him up, get him ahead of Kepler, Donaldson, or Cruz. Buxton, if he can hit the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guy home because he's hitting doubles and triples and home runs out of the 9th spot, let him rake there.
All right. Well, I agree with all of you. I'd also have no problem with, I'd much rather Buxton hit the ball on the ground and put the pressure on the defense and try to beat things out than strike out. But obviously we all want doubles and line drives and all of that too. But I'd love watching him run, and there's nothing better than watching him beat out a ground ball. So I don't have a problem with that necessarily either. So here's one thing we're going to have to do. If we're going to get through more than about 2 or 3 players, we're going to all have to do about 30 seconds instead of like 3 minutes each. So let's jump to the next player, because normally I'm the one that talks a lot, and I'm going to try my best to let you guys do the talking here. But let's jump to Luis Arraez, because I think a lot of the expectations, and even MLB Network and other places, when they talked about batters hitting 400, he was a name that was always brought up. Probably not fair, probably not realistic. It's probably still not even realistic for Charlie Blackmon. But, you know, he also was hitting under 200 recently until today. Now at 2 for 4, he's back at, 236. He's had a couple of rough weeks. And the sophomore slump, as you would probably ask him, it's probably real in some ways. It's also small sample. So that was my not so short way of asking about our next topic. And we'll start with Cody on this one. Luis Arraez, have you seen anything, or was today just one game as well?
Yeah, I think, and I mean, they've talked about it on the broadcast and on the radio side as well. I think that pitchers are just approaching him a little bit differently this season. If you look up some of his his strikeout areas and heat maps and stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff up in the zone and up and in against him are where the majority of the strikeouts were coming into within the last few days anyway. Where last season it was a lot of stuff down in the zone was where he was tending to strike out. So I think one of the biggest things with him is just the scouting reports are out there. More people have seen him. I mean, outside of some of us Twins writers that were really knew who Arraez was, a lot of teams probably didn't think he was going to explode onto the scene like he did last year. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is just pitchers that are approaching him differently this season.
Absolutely. And obviously that's the same as the next guy we'll talk about, Ted Arraez, in 30 seconds. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot has changed. Most of his hit profile is very, very similar. Hard hit rates down a little bit, but his BABIP's only 250 coming into tonight. I think, you know, I don't know. I think it's a small sample size for him. I think he'll, as long as he continues to control the zone, I think those hits will start to fall. He's not chasing or anything like that, but it's producing weaker contact or less optimal results. I think it's just a short term to deal with. And over 60 games, obviously that sucks. If it takes him 30 games, only got a half a season to turn it around.
All right, Matt, you're up. Your thoughts on Arise? Batted ninth tonight, by the way.
Sorry, what was that?
Your thoughts on Luis Arise? And he's the one that batted ninth tonight.
I didn't even actually notice that, just because the lineup was so on fire that it wasn't even a thought in my mind. But anyways, while you guys are talking, I kind of just pulled up his plate discipline stats compared from this year to last year. And looking at him, believe it or not, he's swinging at less pitches out of the zone, swinging at less pitches in general, and he's making a little bit less contact on pitches in the zone. What to make of that, I don't know. All of it's still pretty similar for the most part. So there might be something deeper you have to dig into, but I mainly agree with what Ted was saying, that I think this is just kind of a short sample size. We're seeing a lot of stuff kind of just fall up. I think this is just a slump for him. I don't think it's anything more. I think he'll adjust. I think his bat-to-ball skill is just too phenomenal not to,
I don't want to jump in again here and cut you off, Seth, but I thought that was an interesting thing that I was looking at with Garber today too, is that his zone contact this year is significantly lower than it was last year, but he also is chasing a significantly amount less. And so I think with like this summer camp and it being so small, I can't remember who tweeted it out. I want to say it was someone from Twins Daily yesterday or the day before, but like the Twins are up, I think, almost a pitch per at bat of seeing more pitches. I think guys are sitting there trying to see pitches, and then they're getting into 0-1 counts or 1-2 counts or 0-2 counts, and then you have to deal with whatever the pitcher gives you as opposed to dictating the at bat. Like they're just so far behind that I need to just see pitches, and I mean that puts them in a hole.
All right, so I guess the next player we were going to talk about was Mitch Garber, and we were going to start with Ted anyways, so I mean that worked out just fine. But 3 for 6 tonight. I know we had the single up the middle early in the game that Avasail Garcia just about caught. But Garber is a guy, he's really last year's the first time that he got real consistent playing time. He played quite a bit the year before, but it's not a sophomore slump, but it's a case like Arise, I think, where people started paying attention now this year, whereas going into last year he was a backup catcher to Jason Castro, and now he's the guy. So I'm sure the off seasons were spent working on him and in developing a plan for him, especially AL Central teams. So Ted, what would you add about a Garber who's, again, 3 hits tonight, raises his average to 167. I think it was about a 100-point game for him. But, what are you seeing? And is again, small sample size. We're talking about 12 games this year versus 100 last year. So go ahead.
Yeah, I tweeted out earlier tonight, Matt Trueblood at Twins Daily wrote a really good article on Mitch today, and I was kind of digging into some of his numbers. I don't think that there's a ton less. He's seeing this. They constantly talk on the broadcast about how often he saw fastballs last year, and he's seeing the same amount of fastballs. He's just hitting them less, and I think some of that comes into, again, just he's trying to time and see pitches, but that puts you in a negative count, and it then puts you in a spot where you're dealing with off speed or whatever. The biggest difference last year was that he was getting pitches more middle in or inside, and it seems like pitchers are pitching him away, and he's really struggled to go the opposite way this year as opposed to last year. But again, he had an 11-game sample size last year. I think it was midsummer that he was just terrible too. And 11 games is, this year that's a lot, but 11 games in 162 games doesn't matter at all. So I think it's a learning curve or an adjustment period for him, and I don't think it's so much that, I need to adjust to the off-speed pitches as much as it is I'm just timing everything. And I'm trying to settle in.
Next up, Matt Braun, your thoughts on Garver. And I should point out there are two articles actually tonight on Mitch Garver. First, as you mentioned, from Matthew Trueblood, and the second article that has been posted on Twins Daily by Derek Wetmore is up as well. It just got posted here within the last half hour, in search of why behind Mitch Garver's slump. So, Matt, we'll turn to you.
Mitch Garber, there's a lot to talk about. It's just really fascinating. Just what everything Ted said was true. Just the fact that he's just missing his pitch. It's just as simple as that, you know. Sometimes we like to just over and this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. They're just pitching the same. He just can't do anything about it, as right now at least. It was much better. It was nice to see him have a much better game today. Barreled up a few balls. I just lost my video. Oh, shoot.
We still hear
All
you,
right.
so you're good.
That's great. That will probably be off for the entirety of it because it's a very old laptop. But sorry about that. What was I saying? It was nice seeing Garber find his timing back, at least in one game. I think this is going to be something. I think he definitely bounces back from. It's just he's too good of a hitter. You don't go from 1,000 OPS to like 300 OPS. That just doesn't happen in baseball.
Yeah, it's not ideal for sure. And again, we are talking about what Twins are now. I have to actually look at this now. They are 11-7, 18 games into the season. Cody, you're up. Mitch Garver.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys have been kind of talking about his offense, I've been wondering too, you know, with the changeover in the pitching staff and learning new, multiple new starters, I'm wondering if that is playing a role at all on the offensive side. If you think of, even Odorizzi, who has only been in just back last weekend, and Barrios being the biggest holdover. I mean, obviously Dobnak's been in there too, but with the rest of a lot of the other guys being new and trying to learn those new guys and having spring training cut short, so you're losing out on some time there. I'm wondering if I know he takes pride in the improvements he's made on the defensive side of the ball. I wonder if that's impacting him at all on the offensive side.
It's a fair question, and he's certainly had some moments even this year where it hasn't looked pretty, and some of that might be Sean Poppin was pitching at the time, and you're not necessarily sure where the ball's going in those cases. But it's a lot. I mean, he made some huge improvements, and everything worked out real well for him last year. So just some real quick thoughts from me before we jump to the next player. I didn't really mention Luis Ariz the other day. He talked about how he's noticing that teams are shifting him differently than they did last year. Again, probably speaking to more advanced scouting and more people actually looking at a guy that everyone's talking about now. So I think that's part of it with him. Byron Buxton, again, I know Audra Martin talked about it on the telecast tonight, but he talked before the game today a little bit about how he doesn't like to use in-game video, and he prefers to think of it like he thought of high school, where you didn't have scouting reports. You just went up there and hit, and I think that's great. But then he talked about watching his home run videos when he got home, but which I thought was fantastic. Garver, I mean, again, he's smart, and he thinks through it all. He'll be fine. But you mentioned the one thing I've noticed with him so far this year is there's so many fastballs at 92, 93, 91 miles per hour that he's just missing. And some of that summer camp, it's certainly not lack of effort. And that brings us to the next player, and we'll go back to Matt again, I think, to start this one. And that's Miguel Sano, who we've seen miss a lot of fastballs at 90, 91, 92, right down the middle, seemingly, whether he's expecting another pitch or something. But, again, tonight he had a 440-plus foot home run again. When he puts the ball in play, and I know everyone likes to say, especially in the analytically driven age, that strikeouts are just another out. When he touches the ball and puts it in play, good things happen. So I really want him to hit the ball more often. And when he did it tonight, he had that hit, a long home run, and he's got 4 of them right now. So, Matt, Braun, I know I took my turn of talking way too long, but Matt, your thoughts on Miguel Sano, and if you're seeing anything to be optimistic about other than the long home runs?
Other than the long home run, well, that if you're taking away long home runs from Sano, that's like, man, you're just like stolen ore from a boat, man. Anyways, I love Miguel Sano just because he's precisely the kind of player that pisses off my dad. He's kind of just like you, Seth. Just put the ball in play, stop striking out. And I'm very much in the analytical sphere of what you were talking about. Strikeouts aren't too bad. Just the thing with Sano, we've seen it through his entire career. He'll go through these time periods where you're just like, man, has this guy ever hit a baseball? Because he'll just miss everything thrown at him. But then he'll have other times where it's like, man, why would anyone ever throw this man a baseball? Because it gets hit 450, 460 feet. I swear that thing hit today, it had to have gone 480. I don't buy 440 for a second.
No, that was way off. That was way off.
I thought it went over the slide, which I've never seen before in my life. But anyways, I think he's a lot like Garber. I think he's a lot like Arise. I think he's a lot like a lot of hitters around MLB, where it's just needs to find his timing. It's a very precise thing. It's really hard to hit major league pitching. I think this gets understated by people who sit on the couch. It is incredibly difficult to do. So once he finds that timing, once he gets whatever he needs to get all synced up, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, baseball's not easy. That's for sure. And as you said, we've seen this from Sano before. And once he figures it out and he's, got a little better idea of his swing, a little better idea of the strike zone, I think he'll obviously be fine. But I mean, the unfortunate reality is they just have to keep playing him because that's the only way to get out of this. So, Ted, any thoughts from you on Sano's bat at this time?
Yeah, since everyone at Twins Daily wrote about Garber today, I think I might write about him tomorrow. But he was the other guy that I kind of tweeted about a little bit this afternoon, in that he too seems very much like, and granted, he had the positive COVID test, so he didn't have the opportunity to see those pitches. And even though that's from, his teammates and whatnot, he didn't have the ability to track pitches. But last year, when he had a really strong year, his launch angle was about 15 degrees. This year, he's hitting the ball harder than he did last year. Granted, it's a super small sample size coming into tonight because I think he put 6 balls in play or something like that. But it was exaggerated to the point that it was either beaten to the ground or it was skied up in the air. And yes, hitting the ball hard. I mean, Nelson Cruz and Miguel Sano were 2 of the hardest hitting players in baseball last year. But if you're going to hit the ball hard up in the air, that's a can of corn. So it's that line drive mentality that really drives it out of the park and drives it to kill Bernie Brewer on the slide tonight. Like, if he can connect with his barrel in the middle of the zone and through the middle of the zone like he was tonight, like he has done on some of his home runs, that's where he's going to see success. It's not the guessing that – I mean, he gets out – you hear about hitters say that he gets off his A swing a lot, and he puts a lot of velocity behind hitting the baseball. But if it's at the bottom of the barrel – I mean, he's not fast enough to make it matter. And if it's at the top of the barrel, that doesn't do anything either. So he has a small margin for error, but it's nice to see that the swing is still there.
Cody, your thoughts on Sano tonight? Anything you liking?
He's a big boy that takes big swings, and it was. I think Twins fans have kind of, as Ted was mentioning, have kind of gotten accustomed to. There's been ups and downs throughout his career. He rebuilt his swing last year and looked lost for a while at the plate. Like you were saying, Seth, we're 18 games in. I'm not especially worried about it. Offense is down across baseball. I think going into yesterday or today, overall, I think it was like teams were batting like 233 or something. which after the home run barrage that we got a firsthand look at with the Twins last year, it seems kind of strange. So I think it's, we're living in a strange world. These guys are under a lot of stress too, especially you think the Twins were just on a road trip where they're separated on different buses and they're, taking plane rides and they can't leave hotel rooms. And there's a lot of extra stress where, we get to see the benefits of watching baseball, but they're dealing with a lot of other stuff too, that the behind the scenes stuff that we don't get to see. And so, Snow's got a young child and wife at home, and there can be other things going through your head when you're at the plate too. So these guys are doing the best they can, and hopefully we continue to see some results like we did tonight.
There was a national writer today too. I can't remember who it was, but that noted that because I think going into today, the Major League average was like 230 or something like that. It jumped up to 235, which that's not a huge difference, but you're starting to see hitters getting their timing and getting some of that spring training seasoning down. Like, the further that we go into this season, I would imagine that tilts towards the hitters.
Yeah, no, I definitely, the hitting is down. Hopefully it turns here at some point, but I guess the pitchers probably disagree with that. And as you guys have alluded to in the chat room and Steve Pincus brought up, Mitch Garber did have a great relationship with James Rouse, and a lot of these guys did, but a lot of these guys have a great relationship with Rudy Hernandez, and obviously Edgar Varela knows what he's doing as well. So I think for me at least, I tend to think it's more about just slow starts, or this happens. If it was a 162 game season, as everyone's kind of alluded to, we wouldn't be making as big a deal of this globally. And as much as we want to say every game is worth 2.7, that's just really not true. It's one game at a time and all that kind of stuff, which is easy to say, tougher to do, but it's the reality. Everyone's playing the same schedule, except, as Ted mentions in the chat room, probably the Cardinals. So I'm going to just kind of continue, or just kind of end the offensive conversation, I guess, because in a 12-run game, obviously that's going to be the focus. And to see four guys who have been struggling the last couple of weeks really come through in a big way and have this kind of game, I think we all hope that will carry on as we go. If people do have questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the chat room or in the Q&A. We'll go for a few more minutes here because I want to talk a little bit about pitching. I'm going to start with Cody on this one. Kenta Maeda went 6 2/3. He did give up the 2 runs, but those were late, and it was obviously after they had a big lead. And frankly, he had a lot of time to sit and think during some of those innings, especially was it the 5th inning where there were a bunch of walks and bases loaded walks. And I know he didn't give up runs right after that, but that still has to be a factor. To go 6 2/3, he only threw 85 pitches, so it's not like going that long cost him a lot of time. That's, again, the first time that a Twins starter has pitched into the 7th. So what were your thoughts on Kenta Maeda in this game, Cody?
Yeah, I think he did what you can expect from a pitcher that's pitched a lot of innings at the big league level. If you're given a big lead, you go out there and you pound the strike zone and you make the other team make some mistakes on your pitches. And I don't think he had a 3-ball count until that final inning where he walked a batter there in the 7th. And so he was going out there and he was making the Brewers make the mistakes and doing what he needed to keep the Twins. There's no point in being out there forever and racking up your pitch count. You don't need to be when your team's up huge like that. So he did what he needed to do, and I think so far in his Twins career, he's continued to do that.
Unfortunately, I've kind of forgotten what my order is on all of these and who I've asked first question and how that rotates around. So I'm going to go to Matt next. And along with what Cody mentioned, I think Maeda's really kind of set the tone for the starters. And you'd like to think that the other starters have been watching. I know Dobnik's got a little better numbers, of course, but you got to think Dobnik is a lot of similarity to Maeda in that he gets so much movement. You'd like to think Barrios is watching and kind of getting an idea of some things that Maeda has done and is doing. Matt, your thoughts on what Maeda really kind of a deeper question, what he means as far as this rotation goes.
What does he mean? I have a simple answer to that. He's the ace right now, in my opinion, without a doubt. With the struggles of Barrios and with the fact that every game he's pitched so far has been either a winnable game or a game the Twins have won. You know, he has just gone out there. He's gotten outs. He's gotten outs in many different ways. He's gotten lefties now, which was what held him back forever against the Dodgers. With the Dodgers, I should say. So that's just my simple thought. What does he mean in this rotation? I mean, it's just it's hard to put into words because I think he is kind of the veteran arm that we as Twins fans have been asking for so many years. We always wanted get a guy who's been there and done that and who we can rely on to have these kind of starts. And he is that. And not only is he that, he's showing that it was a wise move to go and make that move in a trade and not sign Madison Bumgarner, who's tossing 87 and now injured, or sign, give 125 to Zach Wheeler, who has question marks, or drop the $300 million we don't have for Garrett Cole, So it's just I have a hard time saying it because I just love Maeda so much. He's a great pitcher. He's fun to watch. He's a great guy, and he really does mean a whole lot to this rotation, more than I can even put into words.
Matt, I really like that answer, and I actually agree with you on that. I think he's the Twins ace. I don't know that he fits into the ace category, and I think we all can agree that stuff-wise, Barrios has the stuff to get there. It's just a matter of consistency and figuring things out when he does have these issues, but I've just been so impressed with Maeda, and just like you said, the calm, the cool, nothing seems big for him. But you consider it coming from LA, that's he's probably been through everything. He's pitched in World Series. So, Ted, your thoughts on Maeda, not only tonight, but I saw you shaking your head a little bit when Matt threw out the word ace as it relates to Maeda.
Yeah, I think Matt Taylor had responded to a tweet tonight that said something about like who would you throw in a playoff series right now if you were the Twins, and maybe Rich Hill would be your start. I think he said Rich Hill would be his starter, Maeda would be game 2, and Barrios would be game 3, and I think that's hard to argue with. I mean, Rich Hill is probably the better stuff, maybe a little bit, than Maeda, but Maeda is so much just a constant. You know what you're never going to get lit up, and more times than not, you're going to be in the game 3 runs or less. And it's crazy to think that there were times the last year or 2 or whatever that the Dodgers just couldn't find a spot for him in their rotation. Yes, they're loaded. Walker Buehler is, the second coming of a Clayton Kershaw or something like that, and Dustin May is a stud and whatnot. But I mean, to think that somebody this good just, I don't know. And even when we acquired him, Twins fans were like, well, he was a number 3. Yeah, but he was a number 3 for one of the best rotations in baseball. He is really, really good. And it's not flashy, but there's never anything to worry about with him. And I think that's just such a calming presence that you need in the postseason. And while Rich Hill could maybe shut down a team where Maeda is going to keep them in check, Rich Hill is an injury concern. I think Maeda is just, like Matt said, he can be the Twins ace. Jose Barrios has an infinitely higher ceiling than Maeda does, but you don't know if you're going to get that on a nightly basis. You know what you're going to get from Kenta Maeda every time he starts.
Yeah, and as much as Hill is a injury risk, he's their best pitcher if he's healthy too, which is, that's
right.
A compliment to him than a knock at Maeda or Barrios. Or like I said, Randy Dobnik's been the guy who's been pitching the best this year. But if that's your 4 going into the playoffs, and you consider Pineda maybe coming back, and Homer Bailey or whoever else may fit into that equation at some point, I think that's pretty exciting. Ted, I don't think I've let off a question with you in a little while, so I'm going to go to I know Matt Braun made the comment about Madison Bumgarner throwing 87 and stuff. Well, frankly, with Lewis Thorpe, that was the concern. He'd been 87, 88 in his last couple of appearances. We saw 91 a few times tonight. So, I mean, are we hopeful? Or I thought he looked pretty good out there on the mound. And that's not to say perfect. He's a rookie. He's going to have ups and downs. But can one outing kind of alleviate some of that concern?
It made me feel better. I thought he should have been maybe sent down after his last outing. I'm glad that they stuck with him, I guess, because I thought he had an opportunity coming into this year, maybe even before spring training, and that whatever you want to call it, mental recheck and whatnot. But I think he had an opportunity to set himself up as a very viable option for the rotation or the pitching staff going forward 2020 and beyond. And he didn't look that way really in spring training, and he then with the decreased velocity over his last few outings, I mean, his stuff doesn't play at 88, 89. He needs to be 91, 92 to have enough differentiation between, you know, the fastball and the other stuff. But I liked that Rocco stuck by him, and I liked that he threw him out there for 2 innings tonight, and I liked that he didn't give up anything. And yeah, the Brewers kind of waved the white flag early, but that's still on the pitcher to go and get those outs. Like, the guy stepping in the batter's box isn't just sitting there saying, hey, get me out. So, yeah, I hope that's a confidence builder for him going forward, and I hope that that's something that can build him into, you know, you get the opportunities that Devin Smelter, Randy Dobnak got last year, and you do something with them.
I think for me, that's kind of the theme of tonight's game is, yeah, it was kind of a laugher, and the Twins needed that, but Lewis Thorpe needed that, and Mitch Garber needed that, and Luis Arias and Byron Buxton and Miguel Sano needed to hit another home run. I mean, it was a game that those guys that needed it, regardless of what the score was during those at-bats, just getting your batting average up a bit or throwing a couple zeros on the mound, that improves your numbers, and you don't look up at the scoreboard and see, you know, a 9.5 ERA, or you don't see a, you know, 0.67 batting average. So Cody, your thoughts on Thorpe and what you saw tonight, or maybe what you see even long-term the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously the uptick in velocity was good to see. He throughout his minor league career has been a strikeout guy at almost every level, and so it's nice to see him get maybe some of that stuff back that we've seen throughout his professional career. This is a deep bullpen. They don't need Thorpe to be a savior for the. We have a lot of arms in the bullpen. We have a lot of starting pitching options. And so, as Ted was just saying, if Thorpe can fit into the role that was held by some of those other long relievers that have turned into long relievers / starters this year, if he can just kind of find his groove and find that role with this team, I think that would be great. And you know, I don't think they need that much more from him. I don't know how many high leverage situations Lewis Thorpe is going to need to pitch in this year. And that's a good thing. He can kind of get his feet wet and figure out what's best for him. I mean, most people wouldn't have thought Randy Dobnak was going to be starting game 2 of the ALDS last year in Yankee Stadium near the beginning of the season. I'm not saying Thorpe's going to do that, but I think Thorpe has a place on this team, you know, for many years moving forward here. And he's just got to, you know, keep making those mechanical adjustments that were getting in the way of him doing what he needed to at the beginning of the year here.
I mean, it's been a broken up season with the start of spring training, the stop of spring training, the 3-month quarantine, the start of summer camp, and all of that. For him, there was an extra bump in there with the 10 or 12 days that he stepped away from spring training. And I'm not saying that's related to what's happening 5 months later, but it could come into play. Matt, I'm going to give you the last thought here on Thorpe and kind of give you the same question as I gave Cody, which is, you know, what kind of role do you see for Thorpe throughout the rest of this season, if any?
Well, I think he has a great opportunity right now. I think he's one of the players who most benefited from this roster expansion up to 28 players, especially because we always need pitching. Everyone always needs pitching in this day and age. This isn't the 70s where you carry 8 pitchers for the entire season, you know. So I think he does have a real good shot at being a multi-inning potential starter if Homer Bailey, if Rich Hill are on the mend. Or come into games like this where, you know, we just need 2 innings, we need a guy, here you go. So I think he has a chance to kind of be in this hybrid sort of role. And just what everyone else was saying, I really liked the fact that he looked better today because he's kind of one of my guys. You know, I was always rooting for. I liked his upside strikeout wise. It was breaking my heart seeing 87, 88. I was like, Lewis, you're better than that. Come on, man. And so to see 91, 92 flashing the big curveball and the slider, everything that made him sort of one of the higher prospects in the Twins system, it was really nice to see, and I hope he carries that out through the rest of the season.
So I think, as we've all probably agreed, when it comes to prospect rankings, Thorpe was always higher than Dobnik and Smeltzer because the quote-unquote stuff was supposedly better. Now, a lot goes into pitching beyond just stuff, and I think that's a good example of it right now. I think, and this is going to lead to my last question before I give you guys one last comment, and we'll end it here so you guys can get some sleep. And Cody's got meetings in the morning, and I got a meeting in the morning, and Ted's probably got something, and Matt's out in Washington, so it's still early for him. But by Friday, the Twins have to probably make 2 roster moves, and one of them is Zach Littell is probably coming back, at least before the game. Rocco Baldelli was basically saying there's a very good chance he's back Friday. I think Lewis Thorpe goes to camp at that point, at least for a little while, and continues to work on these things, the mechanics and stuff like that. But they also need to make a second move because Ildemaro Vargas is expected to join the team. Now, he did show up in Minneapolis today. He did take a COVID test, and he is, you know, by himself. So there's a lot probably going on with that could alter everything within the next 2 days, of course. So here's what I'm looking for from each of you, and it doesn't have to be long, but your thoughts on the 2 players you think that the Twins will send back to St. Paul, the alternate training site, to be replaced by 1, Zach Littell, and 2, and I have to think about it every time, Ildemaro Vargas. And I believe we're back to Cody. Cody, your thoughts? Cody, you're on mute.
Right.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to find the screen where my mute button was. I was pulling up the roster so I could see who's on the fringes. I mean, as far as pitchers go, I mean, like you mentioned, it probably comes down to Thorpe maybe, or Thielbar, that Littell would likely be taking the place of. And then if you look at bench guys, I don't know what they're going to do there, because it feels, unless some random injury is going to pop up, I don't know who, unless they drop another pitcher as well, and maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe they'll drop 2 pitchers, but I'm not sure they want their pitching staff to be that small when you think about, you know, they have an off day now already tomorrow, and so they're going to go into a stretch of a whole bunch of games in a row here without any off days. But if you look at the rest of the guys, I mean, Avila's not going anywhere. You need a backup catcher. Adrianza and Gonzalez being the backup guys in the infield, and then Cave in the outfield. So to me,
it's going to be 2 pitchers. It's going to be 2 pitchers, no question. I mean, they don't need 18 pitchers all year.
No. Yeah, I think don't they have 16 right now? 16 pitchers and 12 hitters?
Yeah, that makes more sense because that adds up to 28.
Yeah, I think they go I could see Thorpe after today, but I think they go Thielbar and Poppin and bring out Vargas.
Hoppin was optioned about 2 or 3.
Oh, yes, yeah. Okay, so then it might be Thielbar and Thorpe, and it's Vargas and Littell.
Matt Braun, your thoughts?
I don't think it'll be Thielbar and Thorpe, just because then you have one lefty in Rogers. So I think one of them stays around simply because they can throw the ball at their left hand, and that gets you in the majors for 18 years, or so it feels like. So it's got to be some combination of, I imagine, probably Thielbar and Thorpe are in the conversation, along with I almost said Poppin, even though you just corrected.
Yeah.
Maybe Alcala also.
Yeah.
Even though I like his stuff, he just might get lost in the mix. I don't know. I think it comes down to some mix of those three guys.
Who do you see, Seth?
All right, here comes my answer, and I'm not even going to pretend that I know that it's right, but I do agree with a couple of things. I don't think it'll be both Thorpe and Thielbar.
You're right. Hold on, before you answer, we got one in the chat that I think is probably right. I forgot Gearin's on the roster. Yeah.
I forgot he existed.
All right,
Yeah,
well, Ted just killed my answer, even though I'm not even
Sorry.
looking at the chat.
No,
So,
actually,
thanks a lot, man.
Is it Justin or Justin Atkins killed your answer?
Yeah, but I wasn't looking at that, so you did it. You're on the bench. Thanks a lot, man. No, I think it's Gearin, and I will say Thorpe. And the reason I say that is because I think 40-man roster spots are still valuable, and I think Thielbar and maybe not Thielbar. He may not be out of options, but Gearin certainly is out of options at this point. So I can see them putting one of those guys on waivers, and I think Gearin would be the one. They got plenty of right-handers, and I think they love Alcala. And so Thorpe or Thielbar, and if Thielbar is out of options, he's going to get claimed by somebody. I'm not guaranteeing that, but when you're left-handed and throw what he does, there's going to be a team that wants you. So I think
He does have one
thought of you don't want to lose guys either. So
he has one option left.
Gearin and
According to Fangraphs, he still has one option left. Thielbar does.
okay, so that is a possibility. I just feel like they can develop Thorpe a little bit more with a more consistent basis. Either way, I mean, none of us know, so we'll find out probably Friday about the time that people start getting to the ballpark and going from there. Of course, like we said, anything can happen before then. So with that, I'm going to call it a show because we're already at almost an hour. So Bonus will probably fire me yet again for going longer than 30 minutes by about double. But I want to thank each of you very much for joining tonight. Be sure to follow Cody Christie, Ted Schwerzler, and Matt Braun on Twitter. I was going to ask each one of them, but all three of them write frequently on Twins Daily, so you probably can find their articles often on the front page, so be sure to do that. And I apologize again for the issues earlier and getting this thing started, but I think we've had a really good show. I appreciate all of you who added thoughts and such in the comments. And yes, Justin Atkins, I agree with you on Gearin. So thank you for that. And again, thanks to our panelists. And with that, our next show, obviously with the off day on Thursday, no show then. We'll be back on Friday. I'm not sure, maybe Bonus might be back. So check it out, and any information, this podcast will be available on the Twins Daily YouTube page, the Twins Daily podcast page, which is now on iTunes as well, in our game recap from tonight's game. And anything you need to know on this, go to postgamepint.com. Thanks again to all you guys. Thanks to everyone in the attendees, and have yourselves a great night and fun to watch another Twins win tonight. Have a good night.
See y'all.